Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the next video in our rebooking WrestleMania series. I was originally going to be rebooking WrestleMania 26, but for whatever reason, I cannot find my notes for that one. I usually have them written down in my notes app on my phone. I could have sworn I had them written down somewhere, but I guess not. So I'll probably have to redo that one, and then we'll do that video at a later time. So, with that being said, we're going to skip on to the next WrestleMania in the series, WrestleMania 27 from 2011. This is considered by many to be one of the worst, or at best below average WrestleManias. This one actually kind of holds a special place for me because this is around this time where like, I got my sister back into watching wrestling after for so long. I was actually at the Monday Night Raw right before the pay-per-view when The Undertaker came out to Johnny Cash. Triple H was there. Shawn Michaels made an appearance. Of course, it was my first time seeing my hero CM Punk live in person. He was the first one to come out. Of course, they had him come out before the show started, so he wouldn't get cheered on air. Then him and the Nexus beat up Randy Orton. At the very end of the show, The Rock came out. It was a verbal theme between him, The Miz, and John Cena. And I guess the little kid in front of me, I guess, didn't know John Cena wasn't a Marine in real life. I guess he just knew him from the Marine movies because the little kid in front of me kept saying, "Stop booing John Cena. He's a Marine." I'm like, "Kid, he's not really a Marine. It was a movie. You say it again, I'm gonna kick you off this balcony." Sorry, I don't condone violence to kids, but yeah. Um, so yeah, I was there the night before. I also got to see one of Edge's last matches before he retired on this Monday Night Raw when he teamed with Christian against Alberto Del Rio and Brodus Clay. I also bought this shirt here, CM Punk's Nexus shirt. Nexus shirt. It was my first CM Punk shirt that I bought. Um, so it was a real fun atmosphere. It was my first time at Monday Night Raw since 2004 when I went to the Go Home Raw before Backlash 2004. I also remember that very distinctively. I do remember the main event of that was Evolution against the team of Mick Foley, Shawn Michaels, Shelton Benjamin, and he who should not be named, Chris Benoit. Different time back then, of course, compared to 2007. But yeah, here to talk about WrestleMania 27. So, like I said, it's not the best WrestleMania, but it does have a special place for me, and I actually have it on DVD. I don't even know why I bought it on the DVD set, but yeah, I went out, I got it. Like I said, probably because it just has that special place for me, even though, like I said, it's not the best. Yes, it's not the best one, but like I said, it still holds a special place for me. So yeah. So going on with that, let's go ahead and get on to what we came here to talk about, and this is rebooking WrestleMania. So starting off, let's go ahead and see what the WWE actually gave us on that day. Starting off on the pre-show, they had what was Daniel Bryan, excuse me, Sheamus defending the United States Championship against Daniel Bryan. A lot of people were upset because this show got moved to the pre-show. Of course, and then they didn't even conclude the match. Somehow it was a lumberjack match and it got turned into a battle royal, which was won by neither Sheamus or Daniel Bryan. It was won by the great Khali of all people. So yeah, that was your pre-show for this event. Going on to the main card, we kick things off with the World Heavyweight Championship. Edge successfully defending against Alberto Del Rio, and of course, not a lot of people. Well, practically nobody knew this was pretty much Edge's last match before his first retirement, which he would retire about a week later on Monday Night Raw. Yeah, he would retire about a week later on Monday Night Raw. Nobody knew that at the time, so yeah, this was his not only his last WrestleMania, but also one of his very last matches before retirement. Up next was Cody Rhodes defeating Rey Mysterio. This is in the middle of the whole Cody Rhodes wearing the dashing gimmick with the face mask and calling people ugly and everything. So I actually like that theme song that he had back then. Yeah. Followed by that, we had a eight-man tag team match. It was the Core, which, as you know, was a spin-off of the Nexus. It was the Core losing to the team of Kane, the Big Show, Kofi Kingston, and Santino Marella. Basically, I think this match was like a squash over in like less than 2 minutes, if I remember correctly. Up next, we had CM Punk, my favorite wrestler, my idol, my hero, the best in the world, taking on Randy Orton, who is also one of my favorites. But of course, I'm going to go with CM Punk. Did he win? No, he did not. Randy Orton won. This was pretty much CM Punk's revenge for what Randy Orton did to him 3 years prior when he took him out of the role, the WWE Championship Champion Scramble match. Yeah, they pretty much didn't have anything else for these guys to do, so they pretty much used that. I guess they finally remember something that they, as we all know, they like to forget things happen. So I guess they finally remember something. Up next was what many people consider to probably be the worst match in WrestleMania history, which and a lot of people think this match had no business being on a WrestleMania card. It was Michael Cole versus Jerry the King Lawler. And surprisingly to many WWE fans, this is actually Jerry the King Lawler's first match at a WrestleMania, despite being with the company for so many years. This was not a good first WrestleMania match, if anything. Like I said, it probably should not have been on the card. Um, yeah, for damn near 20 minutes, including entrances, the match, and everything. Michael Cole had Jack Swagger in his corner. Perhaps the best part of this match was that Stone Cold Steve Austin was the guest referee. Jerry Lawler actually won by submission, but then the anonymous general manager of Raw, if you remember that time, yeah, it wasn't a good product too much at that time. Reversed the decision and gave Michael Cole the win via disqualification because Jerry Lawler, I think he didn't let go of the ankle lock or something. But yeah, after the match, I think Austin gave stunners to everybody, which led to Jim Ross and Jerry King Lawler taking over commentary duties for the rest of the night. Up next was a no holds barred match between two of the all time greats, two of my all time favorites, The Undertaker and Triple H. As I mentioned before, my favorite, personally, my favorite match of all time in WWE history is Triple H versus The Undertaker from 10 years earlier at WrestleMania 17. Now, I know it's probably not the best match ever. I know it's not a five-star classic, but that's my personal favorite match. These guys have had multiple matches together, as you can see with this one. But their first WrestleMania match from 10 years ago at 17, I consider my personal favorite match of all time. I know that whole match by heart. The commentary, what's going to be said, what's going to be done, what moves they're going to be doing. I know that off the top of my head. So, and I found it kind of weird that they actually pretty much ignored that when these two had their match. Because in a way, this was kind of like Triple H getting revenge for Undertaker retiring Shawn Michaels the year prior. So this is pretty much where they were going with that Triple H had done everything except beat the streak. But like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Like I said, they found it weird. They pretty much made it seem like this is the first time meeting at WrestleMania, which in reality it wasn't. They met at WrestleMania 10 years before this. And I just found it weird that they kept ignoring it and ignoring it and ignoring it. And I don't even think they mentioned it at all, or even the next year when they had a rematch. But this is when Undertaker came out to Johnny Cash's Ain't No Grave. Of course, on the DVD, they don't do that because of licensing, I'm guessing. And they re-edited that over with the his regular normal entrance theme, as does Triple H, who, when you watched it live on the pay-per-view, he came out to For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica. But of course, on the DVD, they edited out to just random music. So to me, it wasn't their best match from the WrestleMania trilogy. I think it was probably coming at number three between the three they had. And of course, Undertaker won, continuing the streak. At the end of the match, he like passed out or whatever, I guess, from the harder battle, which would lead to their rematch the following year, in which Undertaker said that's not how he wanted to be remembered as, at least in storyline wise. So yeah. Up next, we had a six-person tag match. It was the team of Dolph Ziggler teaming up with Lay Cool to take on the team of John Morrison, Trish Stratus, and Snooki. Yes, Snooki from Jersey Shore. This is around the time when everybody was in love with Jersey Shore. Everybody was crazy about it. Me personally, I never watched Jersey Shore. I was never into it, though I do like JWoww. But other than that, I was never really in. I was never really into Jersey Shore. It just wasn't my thing. I remember everybody quoting the show like every chance you got or whatever about t-shirts and cabs and all kinds of random shit from that show. I never got into it. It wasn't my thing. No disrespect to anybody who was a Jersey Shore fan, but it just wasn't for me. So yeah, this is another match that was probably like less than 5 minutes. Of course, they gave the win to Snooki's team. A lot of some people were upset, like Melina, or whatever, because she wanted to be there and they gave the match to her. But if, it was a whole debacle. Up next was the main event. It was The Miz defending the WWE Championship against John Cena, and perhaps what many call one of the worst WrestleMania main events. Of course, as you know, The Rock was the host. This was pretty much basically to set up their matchup for next year's WrestleMania. If we really think about it, in all honesty, The Miz was a third wheel in this feud, which sucks because I'm a fan of The Miz. I like him a lot.
Hi.
Hi. And it sucked to have him, being the WWE champion and pretty much being a big part player in this match. Of course, the match ended in a double countout because both superstars got knocked out. And of course, The Rock came out, restarted the match, and like 5 minutes later, after The Rock's assistance, The Miz won. So that, of course, set up the Rock versus John Cena for next year's WrestleMania the following night on Raw. Yeah, it wasn't the best way to end WrestleMania. So that's pretty much what we got, what the WWE gave us. Like I said, me personally, like I said, it has a small sentimental place for me because like I said, I was there the Monday before and everything. It was a nice time for the beginning. But at the same time, it wasn't one of the best. It was a below average at best. So, yeah. So, and with that being said, we're gonna go on to how I would have redone this show. And fun fact, this is actually the first WrestleMania that I rebooked. I want to say I probably did it maybe like a couple years after, like 2014ish, when I just randomly said, okay, how would I have done? How would I have done this different? And I just like remember what was storylines were going on, who was feuding with who, and I was like, okay, I think I could work something out here. So, and I remember being on a Facebook group around maybe 2014, 2015 ish when we did this pre-booking, and I remember posting in that group a complete detailed um like a complete detailed how do I say like paragraph or whatever of how I would have got these matches that I rebooked. Like I had detail, like what the storyline would have been and what would have happened here and what would have happened there. Like I legit did this like completely down to the T, like from who would win the Royal Rumble up until what would happen on Raw. I had like a long ass theme that I posted, and I remember most of it, so I'm gonna see what I can go with from there. But with that being said, let's go with how I would have done WrestleMania 27. Starting off on the pre-show, we're gonna have our good old-fashioned pre-show battle royal, but I'm gonna give the win to Santino Marella because he's pretty much the most over guy that I don't have on the main card. So we're gonna go ahead and give the win to him for this one. Starting off with the main card, we're gonna kick things off with my personal favorite match. And if you've been watching these videos and you've been hearing me say it over and over, you know what my favorite match type is, and that is a multi-person ladder match. Kudos to WrestleMania 42 this past weekend, which had a very, very good, entertaining ladder match for the Intercontinental title. Of course, like I said, that's my favorite, and pretty much from here on up until this year's WrestleMania on these rebookings, I can pretty much spoiler alert. There's probably going to be at least one multi-person ladder match on each of these shows that I redid. May I have overdone it? Maybe, but like I said, these are my bookings. This is my personal favorites, so we're going with how I would have done it. Of course, yeah, it might be overkill to some, but for me, hey, it's what I like. So, anyway, our first matchup would be a very new invent and not invented, but a new type of match that I call the All-Star Number One Contenders Ladder Match. In this matchup, we have Alberto Del Rio, who does not win the Royal Rumble in this timeline, obviously. Cody Rhodes, Daniel Bryan, Wade Barrett, Kofi Kingston, Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, Kane, The Big Show, and Rey Mysterio. 10 of the biggest names at the time competing in a 10-man ladder match. The winner of this match would become the number one contender to the World Championship of their choosing at the next pay-per-view, which I believe was Extreme Rules. And we're going to give the win to Alberto Del Rio, which you'll see when we get to it in a few minutes, where time pretty much catches up to itself in a way. So I would give the win to Del Rio. And I've never really been a fan of Alberto Del Rio. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I know he's Mexican. I'm Mexican, but I just never got into him. I always thought he was pretty boring. So you're probably thinking, why am I giving the win to him when I can be biased and give it to someone who I like? But storyline wise, I have a reason why I picked him. So up next, we're gonna go with we're gonna keep CM Punk and Randy Orton. Yes, a lot of people are probably saying CM Punk should have been a world title at this time, but trust me, John Cena isn't in the world title picture in this timeline. And yes, this is around the time when I was like a big trolling John Cena guy. But yeah, we're gonna keep the CM Punk and Randy Orton going on. Same feud, same storyline, same result. Randy Orton still gets the win. We keep that at that. Up next, we're making a tweak on one of our worst matches of WrestleMania and hopefully making it a little bit better. It's going to be Jerry the King Lawler taking on Michael Cole and Jack Swagger in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Now, yes, Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler was absolute garbage, but hopefully this will be a little bit better because, of course, Jerry the King could go back in his day. He was, still somewhat decent if he could still go at it. Then you have Jack Swagger, who probably should have had the match instead of Michael Cole in the first place. Jack Swagger, he was a good amateur wrestler. He can go in the ring. So in this timeline, we'll have a 2-on-1 handicap match, but we're going to keep the match more down to Jerry the King against Jack Swagger for the majority of the match before he finally tags and Michael Cole gets a few hits in. And then we're going to keep Stone Cold as a referee as well. So in this timeline, I'm going to give the win to Jerry the King Lawler and let him have his very first WrestleMania match and moment. After that, they can go ahead and go like they did in real life and keep Jerry Lawler and JR on commentary for the rest of the night. Up next, we have a no holds barred street fight between Triple H and Sheamus. Okay, now you're wondering, okay, if Triple H is fighting Sheamus in this timeline, where does that leave The Undertaker? And we'll get to that in a few minutes. I really thought they were going to go with this because this is around the time when Triple H pretty much became a part-timer. And the year before at WrestleMania, he defeated Sheamus. And then they had a rematch the following month at Extreme Rules. I believe it was a street fight, if I'm not mistaken. And I know Sheamus took him out. That's when Triple H was out injured. I don't know if it was injured or just take time off. And then he came back practically a year later, and a lot of people thought he was going to get his rematch with Sheamus. I did. But then they pretty much, when Triple H and Undertaker came out, had their face-to-face to confirm their match for WrestleMania. I want to say it was like the next week, Triple H came out to say something. Sheamus came out to confront him, and he basically beat Sheamus' ass and buried him because Sheamus was the king of the ring at the time. So he pretty much buried Sheamus, and they put an end to that. For me, however, in this timeline, I'm going to go ahead and keep the feud going between Triple H and Sheamus, have them have their no-holds-barred street fight at WrestleMania, and the feud they started the year prior, which Sheamus took Triple H out for a year, ditch the whole goofy King Sheamus they had, and just let them just go at it in a street fight. Of course, I'm going to give the win to Triple H. So yeah. Up next, we have the WWE Championship. Okay, the WWE title in the middle of the card. What's going on here? Not the main event. I'll tell you why. Again, in a few minutes, we'll get there. Build the suspense. So up next in this match, we have The Miz, still WWE champion, defending the title against John Morrison. Now, like I said before, when I originally posted this on Facebook like many years ago, I had a detailed description of how we would get there. In this timeline, Alberto Del Rio, as obviously did not win the Royal Rumble. Somebody else did. I won't tell you yet. We'll get there. So in this timeline, we still have the number one contenders elimination chamber match at Elimination Chamber the month prior to this, and it will come down to John Cena and John Morrison. I would give the win to John Morrison, which will lead him to facing The Miz for the WWE title, two former tag team partners. I honestly thought they were going to go in this direction. They didn't. I also thought they were going to go with this match at the Royal Rumble. They didn't. So I really, really feel they should have blew off The Miz and John Morrison, if not at WrestleMania, at least on a pay-per-view at some point, because they were a pretty good tag team, pretty good entertaining tag team. And like I said, I'm a fan of The Miz. John Morrison was a good athlete as well, but I really think they should have had their blowoff feud here. Of course, I'm going to give the win to The Miz so he can set up the triple threat steel cage match they had the following month at Extreme Rules between Miz, John Morrison, and John Cena. Again, time is catching up with itself. We're going to continue that little theme on with the rest of this. So, yeah, up next, we have the World Heavyweight Championship. Edge defending against the Royal Rumble winner of this timeline, Christian. Yes, the way I would have done this is I would have had Christian return at the 40-man Royal Rumble, and he would have won the match and challenged his best friend Edge to a world title match at WrestleMania. And again, when I had this all in complete detail on the Facebook thing I posted years back, if I remember correctly, Edge Christian would have challenged Edge for the title. This would have led to Christian turning heel against Edge, which of course will lead to Edge versus Christian at WrestleMania and so forth. Edge the babyface, Christian the heel. Again, time catches up with himself because of course Edge still has his retirement. Of course I can't control that, but we're gonna just go with what I said. So Edge wins, retains the title at WrestleMania. The following night on Raw is when he announces his retirement. And Christian comes out. People are thinking he's okay. He's gonna do something to Edge because he's retiring. Instead, they embrace. They hug and everything. Former tag team champions, former brothers, if you remember, if you're that old. Um, they embrace. They're together, turning Christian back into a babyface. I remember people commenting on the post that I did. Okay, you're gonna have Christian turn babyface heel, babyface heel. Look at the Big Show. He turned babyface heel at least once or twice a week throughout his whole career. So I'm pretty sure a couple of switches here and there would have hurt for Christian. That, of course, leads to Christian. Of course, Alberto Del Rio, who won the number one contenders ladder match earlier in the night, would want to challenge Edge for that title. But of course, Edge has to retire, which would lead to Christian taking his place against Del Rio in the ladder match at Extreme Rules, which again would lead to Christian winning his first world title at that pay-per-view and let time continue on from there the way it did. So sadly, Ed still retires in this timeline, but I think we would have got a better match between him and Christian than we did with him and Alberto Del Rio. I'm sorry, I just did not like Del Rio. I was just not into him. I thought he was boring. I don't know. I was just me. Up next, I have something different because I have a little tweak on this match. Like I said, we had the Jersey Shore 6-person tag match. We're gonna somewhat keep that, but I'm gonna switch it up a little bit because I actually have 3 choices that I would have done. I honestly couldn't decide which one would be better. I'll let you decide. The first option, of course, would be just a one-on-one match between. Make sure I get this down right. Okay, no, I didn't. The first option would be just Trish Stratus with Snooki in her corner against Michelle McCool with Layla and Vicky Guerrero in her corner because, of course, Vicky Guerrero was in Layla's corner at this time. So that's the first option we could have gone with. Trish Stratus versus Michelle McCool one-on-one. To many people, this is probably a dream match because one of the best women's wrestlers, and Michelle McCool, who really wasn't that bad. I've never really been a fan of her myself, but I can't deny she was a good in the ring. Yes, a lot of people say she got that push because of her relationship with Undertaker. I don't know if that's the case. Like I said, I'm not there, but she was a pretty decent wrestler. Not one of my favorites, but she was decent. So that's the first option: Trish Stratus versus Michelle McCool one-on-one. The second option is Trish Stratus teaming with Snooki in a tag match against both members of Lay Cool with Vicky Guerrero in their corner. Starting their tag match, of course, would have Trish do most of the work against Layla and Michelle. Cool. The third option would be a 2-on-1 handicap match. Trish Stratus again teaming with Snooki. We can't get her out of this team somehow. Teaming up against Lay Cool and Vicky Guerrero. 3-on-2. Of course, we'll keep the most of the match down to Trish and Lay Cool, and then let Vicky and Snooki get their little licks in here and there. Of course, I would still give the win to the babyface team. Now we can get the Jersey Store stuff out of the way. And so going on to our main event, what could possibly be the main event without both world titles already defended already? Now, when I first started this, you remember I told you there was so many times that WWE could have booked Undertaker versus John Cena at WrestleMania. This was one of them, and I think this is probably could have been the perfect time for that. Um, so that's our main event for this WrestleMania: Undertaker versus John Cena. And I'm gonna tell you how we get there. So as we know, John Cena didn't win the Royal Rumble. Christian does. He tried to win the number one contenders elimination chamber. He didn't. John Morrison won. This, of course, would lead to John Cena coming out the next night on Raw and saying that since there's no world title he can qualify for to challenge for, he wants to challenge for the next best thing after a world title match at WrestleMania, and that is the Undertaker streak. This would lead to Undertaker coming out. They have their acceptance challenge or whatever. Boom, bam, set. Undertaker versus John Cena, main event of WrestleMania. Of course, like I said, sometimes there's a match bigger than the title match, which will be the main event, as we, of course, all know the case of WrestleMania 18, in which we all know Rock versus Hulk Hogan should have been the main event instead of Triple H and Chris Jericho. This is another of those moments. We'll have Undertaker versus John Cena. This should have been the main event over any of the other world title matches I chose. And of course, with The Rock as the guest host, he will come out, still have his little mini feud with The Rock, John Cena going on. Pretty much rage baiting John Cena, telling him that John Cena can't do the one thing that The Rock did, and that was defeat The Undertaker. Of course, we all know Rock and Undertaker never fought at WrestleMania. Spoiler alert, they might in one of my future ones. I'm not going to tell you. We'll wait till we get there. But yeah, either way, The Rock has beat Undertaker in the past, and he can, brag about that to John Cena. He can do the one thing that he has done, and that's beat The Undertaker. So, of course, Undertaker versus John Cena, main event of WrestleMania. Does The Rock still interfere? Probably not during the match, maybe after. I'll give the win to Undertaker, of course. This was still, after the match, Rock can come out, make fun of John Cena for losing, and the next night on Raw, they go ahead and make their challenge for the next year's WrestleMania. That didn't really seem hard to do, did it? But hey, sometimes the obvious choice they don't want to go with when it's right there in your face. Sometimes the obvious answer is the best one. But what can you do? So yeah, so there you have it. That's how I would have rebooked WrestleMania 27. Hopefully it came out a lot better than what we got. But you guys let me know. What do you guys think? What was better? What WWE gave us? What I gave you? What would you have done different? What would you have changed? Would you left it the same? Or what are your thoughts, your opinions? I appreciate all the comments and everything at the beginning. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't, click subscribe. I'll see if I can get WrestleMania Twix back up because I have no idea what the hell I did with my notes. So I'll probably have to rewrite them somewhere. If I don't, I'll probably give you the footnote version of that with our next WrestleMania. So like I said, from now on we're not gonna be skipping anymore. It's gonna be straight to this year's WrestleMania 42. I will give you my thoughts on that when we get to that one. It'll probably be a couple weeks, but hey. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, if you haven't asked me about it, chances are I'm gonna talk about it anyway.